San Francisco approves the potential use of killer robots by the police. Is this a good decision? Former SWAT member Chad Ayers comes on to discuss. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Killer robots. It's a scary phrase. I know. It sounds a little bit like Terminator. Maybe not so much end of days, but what a situation we see unfolding in San Francisco. Because in San Francisco, city officials voted to allow the police to use remote-controlled robots in emergency last resort situations. Robots that could have the ability to kill. According to the San Francisco Police Department, they aren't planning to arm the robots with guns, but they could have the robots equipped with explosive charges to, quote, contact, incapacitate, or disorient violent, armed, or dangerous suspects. Now, this is not something that's new. We've seen robots like this used before, maybe most notably in 2016 to kill a sniper out in Texas. But I do want to talk a little bit more about this, and I have a very special guest. I want to bring in Chad Ayers, a former sheriff's deputy for Greenville County in South Carolina, and also a former member of the SWAT team where he served as an assistant team leader. Chad, great to have you here on Sidebar. Thanks for joining us.
Justin, thanks for having me.
So the supervisor vote in San Francisco was 8-3 in favor of using these machines. And there were objections. There were objections from civil liberties groups and police oversight organizations. Again, I know we've seen this technology used before, but happening in San Francisco, what do you think about that?
I'll be honest, does it surprise me that there was the pushback that they had? Not really. But like you said, these tools, robots have been used actually stateside for many years. And like you just mentioned, the first time a robot was actually utilized in like a deadly force situation was the Dallas incident in 2016. So there's a lot. I'll be honest, there's a lot of benefits to utilizing these tools as technology progresses over time. And stateside law enforcement officers have the ability to use them. I'm completely for it. I understand that some people don't fully understand what they will be used for, but there's a lot of benefits in utilizing this technology.
Okay, so let's get into that because according to the San Francisco Police Department, a spokesperson, they said, quote, robots equipped in this manner would only be used in extreme circumstances to save or prevent further loss of innocent lives. Can you give me a situation that would warrant the use of robots using explosives?
Sure. I mean, let's go back. Let's kind of look at the Dallas 5 incident, where you had a heavily armed individual with military experience, with bomb making equipment at his house. So he had that, that ability and the knowledge to cause a lot of harm, to where putting law enforcement personnel, your SWAT operators, or other tactical units closer to that individual could have resulted in loss of life. So where you have someone that where we kind of got to look at the scales and weigh out the safety, the risk versus reward, I guess is probably the best way to say it. Where you have someone that's heavily armed and distance, in law enforcement, distance is always your friend. Interacting with people, traffic stops, whatever, distance is your friend. So if I can create distance, and deadly force is authorized, then why would we put law enforcement officers' lives in jeopardy when we don't have to, when we have these resources for maybe some type of, active shooter situation where a sniper is up on the top of a building and now he's barricaded. We can't safely get up there. I think that's a prime example of when this would be used.
The response to that, I imagine, would be a human being can really gauge the circumstances and the situation. And yes, I know these are remote controlled. They're going to be operated by humans, but isn't there less room for error if a human being goes in versus a robot?
Well, again, so on our SWAT team, every single SWAT call we went on, we integrated with our bomb team. And so we had the ability to utilize those robots. Our robots even started on just barricaded subjects, armed barricaded people who are in there by themselves, which is a type of situation, not on a barricaded subject where, there's no really true threat, maybe like a suicidal subject. We would utilize those robots to clear as much of the residents as we could before we had to make entry, just to see what the layout looks like, what's around. I mean, there's multiple cameras on these things. There's night vision you can put on these things. And so is there, I wish I could wrap this up in a pretty box and say this is exactly how it will look every time, but there's not. But today's technology and utilizing these robots, you're getting pretty much a 360 view about it. And here's the thing, unfortunately, Jesse, when it comes to a time to utilize deadly force, all those other resources, negotiations, 100%, most barricaded type situations, negotiations work, and most people, peacefully surrender in negotiations. Like it's over 90% of the time. But there is a time where, unfortunately, deadly force to protect the citizens, in San Francisco and wherever these things are going to be used, there comes a time where you must use deadly force to protect the lives of, others in that immediate area.
Is there going to be more scrutiny on people using these kinds of the police using these kinds of robots? We say that you have to use them only in the most extreme circumstances. Do you think that there's going to be an extra layer of review to really say, how we talk about pulling out your weapon? You only, there's always a review after someone is involved in an officer-related shooting. What about using these robots? What is the level of discretion? What is the level of review there?
Sure. Well, like I said, there's different ways that we can utilize this technology and utilize these robots. It may be simply a situation in a tight crevice where, in attics, we've used them before, where putting a law enforcement officer up there in a tight confined space, where if I've got the technology to use a canine or a robot, I'm going to utilize for my safety. So should there be, what we call it is like a threat matrix. So in any type of SWAT situation that we go into, the NTOA, which is the board a national board that kind of standardizes tactical teams response, there's a threat matrix. So you're looking at the propensity of violence, the suspect's criminal history and all that to determine how should we go about, apprehending this subject. I think that's the same thing. There's probably in that NTOA will likely have some type of threshold checklist that they are utilizing. But the great thing is we're not just utilizing this tool. And I understand what San Francisco is saying, but these robots have a use in more than just a deadly force situation. But again, I'm telling you, I truly believe, going back to Dallas, there would have been a lot more loss of lives if law enforcement had to actually go in and engage that shooter.
And Chad, before I let you go about this, I do want to ask you real quick. These are the reason people have concerns is because they're remote controlled. They are operated by humans. What happens if I bring you back for a story where the robots can operate themselves? Then we're really dealing into Terminator territory. How would you feel about a situation down the line, 10 years down the line, if you had robots that were utilized by police departments that, were sentient and were able to, operate on their own?
I think that kind of goes back to their concerns. Now I can kind of come to the table and understand with any type of technology, whether it's a body cam that failed, right? Technology fails. My cell phone's going to go dead probably here in the next 20 minutes. So I am not for that. But if we have a law enforcement officer that is at a tablet or a laptop and is operating this themselves, gives me a lot more comfort than just hitting the power button and saying, all right, buddy, go out there and search this. Yeah, now we're kind of getting into an area that I would not be comfortable. Heck, I wouldn't even be comfortable as a SWAT operator making entry after someone said, hey, our robot went in there and cleared it. I'm still going to have that level of worry. Same thing, even as we utilize, as our team incorporated. So we had canines actually assigned to our SWAT team. They were our SWAT dogs. And those dogs, located subjects all the time. But at the end of the day, we're still talking about an animal and we're still talking about technology here. I trust myself. I trust my partners more than I trust a battery operated robot.
Clearly, you have watched Ex Machina, which was never good for anyone involved in that. Chad Ayers, thank you so much for coming on and talk about the story.
Thanks so much, Jess, for having me.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time. Hi there, everybody. Jesse Weber here from Sidebar. On our next episode of Prime Crime, it's the case of Alex Jones, the InfoWars host who at one point denied that the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting was real.
The whole thing is a giant hoax.
When he ended up getting sued for his comments and found himself on trial, the fireworks erupted in court.
Is this a struggle session? Are we in China?
I will not perjure myself under the orders of a judge.
I've already said I'm sorry hundreds of times, and I'm done saying I'm sorry.
But it all came down to what the jury thought, and their decisions left the country in shock. Tune into a special 1-hour episode of Prime Crime on Friday, December 2nd at 8 p.m. Eastern on the Law&Crime Network.